She once giggled with her girlfriends. No chance I'm ever letting him around my relatives. He's way too mortifying. I caught every syllable from the adjoining room. I didn't burst in, didn't raise my voice. I simply waited. That very weekend, she discovered what real mortification feels like. You always assume it happens to someone else. You scroll past these posts and think, people don't actually behave that way in real life. You're convinced the red flags would be obvious. You're certain you'd spot them a mile away. I'm here to tell you that you can be standing in the middle of the storm and still have zero clue until the ground disappears beneath your feet. For me, the ground vanished on a random Tuesday evening. Let me take you back to the start. My name is Matt. I'm 38 years old. I run a landscaping and bespoke outdoor building business. I launched it at 22 with a beat-up old truck and a mower I bought off Craigslist. Today I have 3 full crews, a line of branded vehicles, and we construct everything from luxury stone terraces to multi-tiered waterfalls. I'm not a polished guy. My palms are rough. There's usually soil under my nails no matter how hard I scrub, but I'm proud of what I've created from nothing. It's solid. It's mine. For the past 4 years, my entire world has spun around Amelia. She's 32, stunning, sharp as a blade, and works in corporate communications. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and I fell completely. She was everything I never thought I could reach. Elegant, cultured, knew exactly which glass was for red and which fork came first. I believed she completed me. I believed we were partners. We got engaged half a year ago. She was the one who pushed for both of us to wear engagement rings. She'd read some think piece about it being the new symbol of true equality. It felt odd to me. You don't see many American men wearing them, but it mattered to her. She said it proved to the world we were equally invested. So I wore the understated platinum band she picked out with her friends, and I wore it proudly. The diamond I put on her finger was a different league, timeless, flawless, and worth more than my first 2 trucks combined. I didn't blink. I wanted her to have something extraordinary. The only real friction, if you could call it that, was where we came from. I grew up in a regular blue-collar home. Dad fixed cars for a living. Mom was a classroom aide. We were content. Amelia's family is generational wealth. Her father is a prominent surgeon. Her mother chairs a high-profile nonprofit. They inhabit a universe of private clubs, charity auctions, and vacation compounds. I had met her parents maybe 5 times. They were courteous in that distant, clinical way, like I was an interesting specimen they were studying under glass. I was never included in the major family gatherings or holidays. Amelia always had an excuse ready. It's just tedious relatives, you'd hate it. Or, Aunt Claire is in town and she's exhausting. Trust me, I'm sparing you. I swallowed every explanation. I thought she was protecting me from their judgment. I was blind. The truth slammed into me last Tuesday night. Amelia had invited her 2 closest friends, Chloe and Isabella, her chosen maids of honor, over for wine. I was in my study, which shares a thin wall with the living room, trying to wrap up quarterly invoices. They'd polished off a couple of bottles, voices rising, laughter turning cutting. I was doing my best to ignore them when Chloe asked, "So your mom's 60th bash this weekend. Is it still the full family unveiling plan?" There was a beat of silence. Then Amelia let out a laugh I'd never heard from her before, cold, scornful. "Absolutely not," she said, venom dripping. "Can you picture it? I would never subject my relatives to him. He's mortifying." The sentence punched the air out of my lungs. I froze. "Too right," Isabella purred. "But darling, you can't keep him locked in the basement forever. What on earth would he chat about with Uncle Robert?" "Topsoil." They all howled. I know. Amelia sighed, still laughing. "I have a strategy. Get the marriage locked in, then slowly refine him. He's a solid earner. You just have to file down the course bits. Or upgrade entirely," Chloe offered, and the room dissolved into giggles again. I didn't hear another word after that. Blood pounded in my ears. I wasn't her fiancé. I was a renovation project, a dirty secret to be managed. The man she planned to marry wasn't fit to stand beside her in front of her own blood. I didn't charge in. I didn't shout. I sat in the dark, hands motionless on the desk, and something inside me crystallized. Sharp, icy, unbreakable. She had just handed me the exact map of how little she thought of me. She assumed I was basic. She was about to learn how mistaken that assumption was. I waited until her friends left, shut my laptop, and began drafting my own blueprint. She wanted embarrassment? I would serve it to her in a way she would never outlive. Update 1. The day after I overheard them felt endless. I moved through the hours like a ghost. Amelia breezed into the study later, pecked my forehead, told me she was heading to bed. She never noticed that the man she kissed goodnight was already gone. My countermove had to be surgical. No rage, no mess, just inevitable fallout. She saw me as a simple guy who played in dirt for a living. She forgot that my entire profession is transforming empty plots into something breathtaking. I was about to do the same to the life she thought she had secured. First thing Wednesday morning, I phoned my attorney. I recounted everything I'd heard. I needed to know exactly where I stood. The house was mine alone, bought years before we met. Her name was nowhere on the deed. We shared one joint wedding fund, but almost nothing else was mingled. He confirmed the house was untouchable and told me to immediately transfer half the wedding account into a new solo account to protect my share. I did it while we were still on the call. Next, I dug into her mother's small family dinner. A 2-minute Google search revealed the lie. It was a lavish, invitation-only gala at the city's most exclusive private gallery, guest list dripping with old money and new influence. She was planning to attend solo, leaving her shameful fiancé at home with some excuse. The Fury was now a clean, cold engine. I spent the day laying tracks. I reserved a luxury black car service, the kind you see in films, suited driver, the works, for Friday afternoon. I booked a white-glove moving crew for Friday morning, instructing them to box and relocate every item belonging to Amelia into a premium, climate-controlled storage facility. I prepaid 3 months up front. Thursday evening, I began the performance with Amelia. I walked in with her favorite peonies, told her I had arranged something extraordinary because wedding stress had been brutal and I knew her mom's milestone was coming up. I've organized a secret romantic weekend, just us. We leave Friday afternoon, back Sunday morning, so you're still there for the actual birthday. Her face lit up like a child's. This was her love language: extravagance, surprises, being envied. Matt, oh my God, where? Total surprise, I grinned. Pack one overnight bag and something elegant for dinner Friday. I've taken care of every detail. She spent the next hour texting her group chat, crowing about how her sweet, simple man was finally learning how to treat her right. Friday morning, I called out of work. As soon as she left for her office, the movers arrived, quiet, fast, impeccable. 3 hours later, every trace of Amelia had vanished. Wardrobe, cosmetics, artwork, the mountain of decorative cushions she insisted elevated the decor. The house looked like it had when I bought it, spare, peaceful mine. I had the locks rekeyed front to back. At 4 sharp, the Blacktown car slid into the driveway. Amelia arrived minutes later, practically vibrating, small designer weekender in hand. Chloe and Isabella had tagged along to send her off, and were already camped on my couch with a bottle of Veuve. The car's here, I announced warmly. She threw her arms around me. I'm dying. Tell me where we're going. Her friends watched, eyes sparkling. This was prime content. I walked her to the door, took her bag, handed it to the stone-faced driver who held the rear door open. Have the most wonderful weekend, I said, beaming. I kissed her cheek. She blinked. Wait, you're not coming. No, I replied, smile unwavering. This getaway is just for you. I handed the driver a thick envelope with his final instructions and tip. Then I handed Amelia a second heavy cream envelope with her name in calligraphy. Everything you need to know is inside. Safe travels. I stepped back into my house and shut the door. I turned the deadbolt. I heard muffled confusion outside. From the living room window, I watched Amelia stare at the envelope, then at my closed door, then climb into the back seat alone. Chloe and Isabella stood abandoned on the driveway, mouths open, as the car glided away. Phase 1 complete. Update 2. The silence after that car disappeared was deafening. Chloe and Isabella lingered in the driveway, another 10 minutes blowing up both our phones. I let them ring. Eventually they drove off, no doubt to start a frantic thread titled WTF Just Happened. I poured a generous whiskey, sat back, and waited. I knew the Real explosion was still 45 minutes out. Here's what was in the envelopes. The driver's envelope contained his destination, the private gallery hosting her mother's gala, and orders to drop Amelia at the front steps. Hand her one final small envelope from the glove box, accept no conversation, and depart immediately. Amelia's thick envelope held a 4-page letter I had labored over for 2 nights. It was calm, precise, and merciless. It opened with her exact words: "I would never subject my relatives to him. He's mortifying." I explained I had heard every syllable. I laid out exactly how I now understood my assigned role: walking ATM to be hidden and reshaped post-vows. I informed her I was relieving her of that burden. I was removing myself entirely so she could enjoy her family without the shame of my presence. I listed the dissolved engagement, the new locks, the storage unit containing every possession she owned in my home, and that the unit key was in the small envelope she would receive on arrival. I closed by wishing her luck finding a partner she wasn't ashamed to stand beside. While she read that letter in the back of the town car, a bonded courier was already en route to her father's private practice with an insured parcel containing both engagement rings and a brief note. "Dr. Anderson, I am returning these symbols of a commitment that, it turns out, existed only on my side. Amelia has made her feelings clear, and I am honoring them by stepping away. I regret any distress this causes your family. Respectfully, Matt." Timing was everything. She would arrive distraught, letter in hand, just as her father opened a package proving every word. No wiggle room, no spin, just raw truth in front of the audience she cherished most. By 6:30 my phone was a war zone. Missed calls from Amelia, her mother, her father, unknown numbers. Texts flooded in. "How could you abandon me here? Everyone is staring. Dad is livid. You've destroyed my life. Let me in the house right now, you lunatic. It was just girl talk. I didn't mean it. You've ruined everything. I hope you're proud." Then Chloe and Isabella unleashed their own barrage, called me a sociopath, a calculated abuser, insisted I had orchestrated everything to trap and publicly humiliate an innocent woman. I read every message. I replied to none. I ordered pepperoni pizza, threw on an action movie, and put my phone on Do Not Disturb. The next day, the full report filtered back through a buddy whose cousin catered the event. Amelia had stepped out of a luxury car dressed for a romantic dinner, alone, clutching a letter, mascara already running. Seconds later, her father opened the ring parcel in full view of half the city's elite. The scene was apparently cinematic. Her mother dragging her toward a side corridor, her father going crimson, whispers igniting like wildfire across the gallery. She had desperately wanted to avoid looking like she'd settled. Instead, she became the main exhibit. Sunday, the tactic changed. No more pleading, just warfare. Vague Instagram stories from Chloe and Isabella about toxic partners no one sees coming and escaping silent abuse. Amelia posted a single black and white photo of a tear on her cheek captioned, "Sometimes freedom hurts." #survivor. They were rewriting the narrative, painting me as the monster. I shut it down the only way that mattered, quietly and permanently. A month earlier, Amelia had asked me to help free up phone storage. I'd backed up her entire photo library and, unbeknownst to her, her voice memos onto the MacBook she'd left behind. Muscle memory gave me the password, her childhood dog's name. There it was, a voice memo titled, "Wine Night W Girls." The entire conversation, crystal clear. I trimmed it to the most devastating 60 seconds, saved the file, and sent it to exactly 2 people. First, Isabella's fiancé, Tom, a private equity guy I'd met a few times. My message was short. "Tom, thought you should hear how your fiancé and her friends talk about men when they think no one else is listening." Second, Dr. Anderson. The email read, "Dr. Anderson, I have no interest in a public circus. However, Amelia and her friends have begun portraying me as an abuser. Attached is the conversation that ended our engagement, in her own words. I will keep this private, but I will protect my name if pushed. Please advise your daughter accordingly." The posts vanished within 2 hours. Game over. Final update. For months have passed since the night of the gala. Life has settled into a steady, peaceful cadence I didn't realize I'd been missing. The rage has burned off, leaving only clarity and a deep, quiet relief. After the audio went out, all contact ceased instantly. They understood I held undeniable proof and would use it if necessary. Silence became their only defense. Isabella's engagement to Tom is finished. Hearing his future wife cackle about filing down rough edges or trading up was apparently all he needed to hear about the company she kept. Chloe's marriage nearly imploded. Her husband reportedly reevaluated a lot after the smear attempt. Amelia, from what reaches me through the grapevine, has moved back into her parents' estate. Her father, obsessed with image, was mortified by the very public unraveling. Word is he slashed her allowance to almost nothing and told her to get a job. The princess era is over. 2 months ago, I received a formal letter from an attorney claiming Amelia was entitled to a share of my company for emotional labor and domestic contribution. My attorney's reply included an itemized invoice for her half of the forfeited wedding deposits, north of 40 grand, plus every vacation, car payment, and credit card bill I'd covered for a year, and a gentle reminder that we would happily see her in court, where her recorded statements would demonstrate premeditated intent to defraud. We never heard another word. The sweetest part isn't the fallout. It's the return to myself. Business is booming. I just signed the 2 largest residential contracts in company history. I've reconnected with friends Amelia used to call low class. I spend weekends hiking ridgelines and fly fishing mountain streams. Activities she labeled gross. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but there's a veterinarian who laughs at my jokes, who listened to the whole saga without flinching, and who, when I told her what I do, said, "That's incredible. You take blank dirt and make beauty." She looked at the calluses on my hands like they were proof of character. The contrast is staggering. Last Saturday, I was working at a cafe when Amelia walked in with her mother. She didn't notice me at first. She looked smaller somehow, hair flatter, shoulders rounded, the glow gone. Her mother was speaking in a low, clipped tone while Amelia stared at the floor and nodded mechanically. Then her eyes lifted and met mine. For a split second, panic flashed, then something that looked a lot like shame. She turned on her heel and hurried out, leaving her mother standing there. I didn't feel victory. I felt only pity. She had been so terrified of anyone thinking she'd settled that she orchestrated her own social execution. In trying to avoid embarrassment, she became its living definition. And in the end, she lost everything. Her friends, her fiancé, her reputation, because she couldn't recognize the worth of a man who loved her exactly as she was, instead of the version she planned to force him into.